After the iGBA app was recently put up and quickly taken down, we now have the original source, the Delta emulator, on iOS devices, and emulation seems to be nice and happy on Apple for the first time in forever. And you know that Nintendo is not going to be happy with this though, but hopefully this actually might be a catalyst for some change on Nintendo's side. So what's up, Waluigi? Trent from Trentendo. Today we're going to talk about what this means for Nintendo and some of the changes that we could maybe hopefully see from them, as we have to now navigate a world where Apple is allowing this on their devices, and you know Nintendo is not going to be having it. So before we hop into all this, make sure you hit that subscribe button and like this video so you guys are kept up to date with everything going on here at Trentendo. Let's get 20 likes on this. It really does help. I appreciate it. And let's just dive right in. Now, as I mentioned, over the weekend, we had the iGBA emulator pop up. It was quickly taken down, and the creator of the Delta emulator had suggested that this was his code, his emulator basically ripped off with tracking and with ads added. And it seemed Apple must have agreed because it was taken down very quickly, and now we actually see the Delta emulator up and on the App Store. And people are playing games like crazy with this, and it's made it much more accessible and ease of use for a lot of people that maybe haven't had to deal with emulators in the past. All you have to do is download an app on the App Store, go to a website and download a ROM essentially, or upload a ROM if you've got one somewhere, and off you go. Like, it's that simple. And with the amount of Apple devices out there, you know this is going to be widespread, especially with how well this app is ranking within the App Store itself. And as I mentioned, we know that Nintendo is not going to be happy about this. They have been staunch defenders of their games and of emulation and not wanting it. We've seen them get emulators taken down. We saw them get Dolphin taken off of Steam before it even got put up. So you know that Nintendo, if they have their way, this emulator is coming down quickly. But the fact that it's been up for as many days as it has been is, you know, an interesting thing to note, that they haven't come after this as far as we know yet. I'm sure that they've got people on the side or in the background working on something. And it's going to be interesting to see what Apple does, because you have two just humongous companies where Apple has now basically gone in and updated their terms and their policies, and has said emulators are allowed on the iOS devices. And, you know, depending on what people do with this, that's where we can kind of get into the legality issue and what Nintendo would want. But Apple has gone on and said that this is allowed at this point. So what does Nintendo do? Do they somehow get it taken down? Do they maybe restrict the way that you are able to put games onto it? Because, you know, there's games like Homebrews and some of these other indie titles that can run on like a Super Nintendo, and you can get a ROM for and run it. So there's lots of things that are like gray areas that Nintendo would want to restrict, but if Apple says no, you can't restrict it that way, Nintendo might just kind of have to just sit and kind of be put in their place a little bit, because this isn't just, you know, some small company that they're going to be able to just say, hey, take this down now or else. You know, Nintendo and Apple's probably the one company that can tell Nintendo to just, you know, go away. Like, we're not dealing with you right now. So there's going to be some interesting stuff there if and when Nintendo decides to go after it. But as I said, I hope that this could actually be a catalyst for some good for Nintendo, because, you know, I think that ideally we would rather play games on hardware. I think official hardware, I guess you could say. Playing on a phone is fun. It's easy. As I said, it's just ease of access, but it's not the ideal way to play this. And with how the Nintendo Switch now is so portable, and we've got so many different controller options, I think that the preferred way would be to actually play classic games on a Nintendo Switch. If Nintendo gave us the ability to, that's the big if right there. Now, we have the Nintendo Switch Online, which, you know, Nintendo has done a decent job of getting some games out to us. We're able to play some of these classic games like Ocarina of Time, like Paper Mario, like Majora's Mask. They've got stuff from the Super Nintendo. They've got stuff from the NES. You even have Sega Genesis games on there now. But if you look at like the Game Boy and Game Boy Advance side, it's a pretty sparse catalog. And Nintendo has done a poor job, in my opinion, at updating the titles for these particular systems. We're paying $50 a month if you have the expansion pass to not only go online, but to have access to these classic games. And the way that Nintendo has handled their business as far as drip feeding games and not really even giving us some sort of time frame as to what to expect games. Like, at the very least, even if you don't announce like a roadmap of games, maybe at least we should know that we're going to get a game a month, or we're going to get a game every other month. Like, at least communicate that to people who are paying good money for these services. And with that being said, now with this emulator being here, does this kind of break Nintendo into giving us more games instead of these drip feed, instead of this, sporadic adding a game here and there? Do we finally just get like a decent amount of games added to the service quicker? Because Nintendo would rather have them get money for these games than us going and downloading them and then playing their old classic library on a phone or on an emulator elsewhere as well. So it's going to be interesting to see what Nintendo does as far as their library of games, because there's a couple of ways that I think that they could really combat this and make this just a big nothing burger that you can play a game on your phone. So what? You can go play it on a way better hardware. It's still going to be portable, and you're going to have access to a ton of different stuff instead of just, having to be beholden to whatever they decide to give us a game. So I think, as I said, this hopefully can be a catalyst for change for Nintendo. Whether or not that actually does anything, I'm not an insider, and Nintendo has, shown us that they are not going to be swayed by companies. Sometimes they're very stuck in their ways and they're going to do it their way. So this might not end up being anything, but it's going to be interesting to see what Nintendo decides to do, because like I said, this has an opportunity for them, I feel like, to really just go out on a limb and add a bunch of titles that would help probably get people to either sign up or to stay signed up, and then it would just make this Delta emulator really not a big deal. And if people are playing on their phones, great, they're going to still get a big chunk of change from people being able to play their classic games on Nintendo Switch. So I'd love to hear your guys' thoughts down below, though. What do you think? Have you downloaded it? Do you intend to play games on Delta? Do you prefer to play it on a phone versus on a Switch or on whatever the case may be? I'm interested to hear your guys' thoughts on that as well. So I'm hoping you guys enjoyed. Make sure you hit that subscribe button, like this video on your way out. It really does help. I appreciate it. And until next time, catch you later.